Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Blue Collar Nation podcast. My name is Larry, and I'm here with my inquiring, tech whispering business partner, Mr. Eric Sprague. How are you today, Eric?
Doing great. How are you?
Great.
You're safe today. You're out of my reach. I'm far
I feel
away.
safe. Won't be dropping any bricks on my head. That's pretty cool.
Michelle, just so you know, Larry and I are college roommates as well as business partners.
So wow.
Long history there.
We go back to beating each other over the head multiple times.
And you're still friends. Sometimes. Congratulations.
Yeah, 36 years later.
So the podcast today is sponsored by Morning Tech Meeting. And Morning Tech Meeting is a system to train your technicians in the soft skills. And when I say soft skills, I mean non-technical. Eric and I had a business for years, a service business. And we would train our guys how to do the work. And that necessarily didn't increase the business. What increased the value of the business was training them in skills to interact with the clients, to connect with them, to problem solve with them, and to make a difference in the service experience that they had. And Eric, being the tech whisperer, was very effective at that. And we created a system of lessons for your technicians so that they can do the same for you. So go to morningtechmeeting.com, put your name and your email in there, and we will send you some simple lessons, and you can see the difference that will make in your business too. So back to our podcast. We have a wonderful guest today, and I'm going to do my best to get your name perfectly correct. Michelle Seiler Tucker, leading authority of buying, selling, fixing, and growing businesses. She's the author of an upcoming book, Exit Rich, that's coming out June 22nd. She's also the host of the Exit Rich podcast. Hello, Michelle. How are you today?
Hi, Larry. I'm good. How are you gentlemen doing?
We're great.
Spectacular.
Thanks for having me on.
We're having a great conversation here with you. You're going to bring tons of value to our listeners. They're very excited to hear you
Awesome.
today.
We're going to have some fun.
Yeah. So, Eric, take the floor. Let's have a nice conversation with Michelle.
Thank you for joining us. We want to dig in deep to something that in our world, a lot of guys really struggle with. They start a business with the idea that they think they're going to sell it, but they don't necessarily know the roadmap to get there. And you have created a blueprint or a roadmap to do such things. So I think it's going to be really, really informative for a lot of our buyers. And Larry and our listeners, Larry and I have been through this before. So we have some understanding of this as well, not on your level. But why don't you kind of break the ice and just tell us a little bit about yourself? We just found out you're from Long Beach, so you're from our neck of the woods. So why don't we start there?
Sure. Yes, I was born in Long Beach, California. And we moved when I was young. My father moved all of us kids when we were young because he was from a family of 12 siblings. And
a lot of kids.
He's like, he didn't want to be around them anymore. So he decided to pack up the kids and move us to Austin, Texas. So I grew up in Texas, and now I live in New Orleans. But I'm a mergers and acquisitions master intermediary, senior business analyst, and a bunch of other acronyms. I've been in this industry a little over 20 years. I've personally sold over 500 companies. Altogether with my firm, we've done right at 1,000, a little over 1,000. I don't know. We lost count. But pretty much in every single vertical. We specialize in buying, selling, fixing, growing businesses. The way I got into this industry, because everybody wants to know, well, how did you get into this? I've always owned different businesses in different verticals. And I actually had a franchise sales, development, and consulting company. And I had some equity partnerships with different franchisors. And I had so many buyers that wanted to buy existing businesses. They didn't want to buy a franchise. And I kept saying, no, we don't have any existing businesses. And then I finally said, why am I saying no? I need to have, I need to be selling existing businesses. And really that's what led me to start my mergers and acquisitions firm nearly over 20 years ago. And the reason I transitioned really into fixing businesses is because what Steve Forbes says is true. And Steve Forbes endorsed my book, Exit Rich. He said 80% of businesses will never sell. 8 out of 10 businesses won't sell. So when I transitioned to mergers and acquisitions, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know that. And if I don't start fixing them and growing them and putting them on a build to sell model, I'm going to starve to death. So that's really how we started specializing in buying, selling, fixing, growing. And we also partner with business owners, investing my capital, resources, expertise, and really fix their business, put them on a build to sell model, and exit the business. So my goal is to own, at any given time, own 5 to 10 different businesses that I'm building to sell.
Yeah, that's really interesting model. I mean, particular industries. I mean, for us, it's home services, right?
Mhm.
That's who's listening. So is that one of the
So as
verticals
far
that you're in?
as selling, we've pretty much sold businesses in every single vertical you can imagine. We've sold lots and lots of service businesses. As far as partnering with, it really depends. I have like a checklist, and I prefer those industries that service a niche. And like, you'll never see me in the restaurant business. Love restaurants, but I don't know anything about owning one. But so I like those niche businesses. Plus, I want to make sure if I'm going to partner with an owner that they're going to listen to me.
Yeah, that's going to be the hard part. That,
That's
My
always a
hard
hard
part all
part.
the time. My business partner doesn't listen to me at all.
Shame on him.
yeah, that goes two
That's
ways.
what I
I
say
always
all the
say-
time.
That
Shame
goes
on
two
him.
way. That goes two ways.
I always say you can only grow the business as much as you can grow the owner. So I always look at, how passionate is the owner? Is the owner still really passionate? Do they still have, a lot of creative ideas? Are they visionary? Can we grow this company? Can we build it to sell it within 5 years for our desired price tag? That's kind of my checklist. We're industry agnostic though.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. All over the country. I mean, there's no any, or do you
All
try
over the
to?
United States. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I did do an investment in South Africa, and that wasn't one of my best investments. Not because it was in South Africa, but it's because of the owner.
Right. Yeah. Well, then let's get into what the owner mistakes are. Like, let's kind of go through. You have a checklist, right? But you have a checklist also of what you don't want to see in a business, or
Yeah,
you
what have
don't
you
want,
seen?
or
Like,
you
for
don't want
example,
to see in an owner.
yeah.
Oh yeah. So I mean, I could write a book. I've written 3 books, and I've got probably 7 more in me. But I could write a book on the mistakes owners make.
Yeah.
The number one mistakes. Let's just get right into it. Like I said, Steve Forbes says 80% of businesses don't sell. I mean, that's a big number, huge number.
Yeah.
8 out of 10 businesses will not sell, and they certainly will not sell for the price tag the owner needs to retire on. So the first mistake, the biggest mistake, is business owners don't plan their exit. They don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. And business owners never think about selling until a catastrophic event occurs, whether that's internal or external. Internal health issues, partner disputes, partner death, divorce, death of a spouse, death of the owner. These are all catastrophic events. This pandemic, external. So external can be pandemics, fires, hurricanes. The worst time to sell your business is during a catastrophe, because your business is not doing well, it's trending down, you're not going to maximize value, you're probably going to end up exiting poor and selling for pennies on the dollar. Best time to sell your business is when it's in its prime and it's doing well. So I walk all my clients through what I call the GPS exit model. Would you like us to go through that?
Yes, please.
Please.
So when you gentlemen want to drive somewhere in California, in Los Angeles, you pull out your phone, you go to Google Maps. Remember the old days when we used to pull out a real map and then pop into the gas station and ask them where we're going, or use a pay phone and get instructions? All right, so now we use our phone, we go to Google Maps, and what do we plug in?
Yeah, just where we're going.
Where we're
Yeah.
going, the address,
Yeah.
The
the
destination, right?
destination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't plug in a destination, what happens?
You
Just driving blindly.
You're
go
driving
around in
blindly,
circles. Yeah.
around in circles.
Yeah.
So that's what happens to business owners. Business owners have no destination.
So why do you think, before we move on, Michelle, why is that? Do they start as kind of technician types and they're just really good at that one thing they do and they don't look at the rest?
So it's pretty much every industry. I know our listeners are service industries, but I will tell you it's every single industry across the board. Business owners start their business. They work in their business, not on their business. A lot of business owners have created a glorified job in which they go to work at every day versus a job that actually versus a business that works for them. So they're so busy in the day to day, they got their finger in every pot and every pie, that they're not working on their business, so they're not thinking of the exit. Also, the mindset has to shift. Business owners think of their business as their baby. This is my baby. A lot of business owners say, oh, I'm never going to sell my baby. I'm never going to sell my business. Well, nothing lasts forever, right? And your business is not your baby. Your babies are at home. Go home, hug them, love them, kiss them. Treat your business as a valuable asset that it actually is.
Right.
So the reason why business owners never plan their exits, they just don't think about it. They're so busy in the day-to-day. They're so caught up in the chaos
Yeah.
that they're not working on their business. And then when they do think about it, because of a catastrophic event or because of burnout, we get a lot of business owners that call us because they're just burned out. They're like, I can't take it anymore. I can't take employees. I have so many buyers, business owners calling me and say, the day they raise the minimum wage, I'm out. So they don't think about it until something happens. That's not what you need to do. You need to be thinking, it's kind of like, do y'all invest? Do y'all have financial advisors?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you look at your portfolio on a regular basis?
Mhm.
Yep.
Do you touch it every day? No. You have an advisor, you have an expert, right? But you treat it as a valuable asset, right? You're not like, oh, this is my baby. I can never sell those stocks or trade those stocks, when a company starts to fall, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
the advisor do what's best because you treat it as an asset.
Yeah.
Business owners don't treat their business as an asset.
What we did, just to interject, before we started getting coaching, we just fly along in the seat of our pants, just making decisions, and you're overwhelmed, and you never stop to reflect on what you should do to change the direction of your business. And granted, if you don't know where you're going, that's one thing, but just not stopping and reflecting and looking at everything is from the 10,000-foot view to make a difference. That's part of the problem that I see with us getting in different companies.
Right. That's the statement I made earlier when I said business owners are working in their business, not on their business. So I'll give you a perfect example. This is not a service business, but it's a graphics business. The owner called me, wanted to sell his business. Him, his wife, one employee, working out of their garage, working about 14 hours a day. Mortgage their family home. Husband and wife about to get a divorce because they're working 14 hours a day. And they have one employee who they told they're going to sell the business. So what does that one employee do? They go and get a job.
Yeah.
These people are working in their business. The business owner said, Michelle, I don't have the business acumen to grow the business. And I said, well, your business is not sellable.
Right.
Because you are the business. Once I take you and your wife out of the business, there is no business. You're going to have to work, for somebody. And they've been self-employed for decades. Anyway, the problem was that they were doing everything. They were doing the art. They were doing the installs. They were doing the billing. They were doing the hiring. They were doing everything. You can't do everything. And that's a lot of business owners in almost every industry across the board.
Yeah.
That's why we take our clients through what we call the infrastructure of the 6 Ps. When you're in the middle of your fog, it's foggy. And it's extremely chaotic. And there's no way that you can work on it. Like they cannot hire people because they didn't have time to write job descriptions. They didn't have time to write ads. They didn't have time to place ads. They didn't have time to do interviews. They didn't have time to conduct interviews. They weren't even invoicing clients because they were so busy. They were just stuffing the invoices in the cabinet in the garage. I mean, they weren't even invoicing people.
That's crazy.
So this happens time and time and time again, especially in service businesses and a lot of businesses. So you gotta, we'll move into the infrastructure in a minute. But one of the biggest things that business owners have to do, we'll get back to GPS exit model. Business owners have to focus on their strengths and hire their weaknesses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't be working in the business. You can't be doing everything. The first P is people. You don't build a business, you build people. And people build the business. The number 2 reason that businesses are not sellable is because the business is 1,000% dependent upon that owner.
Yeah.
I had a lady call me the other day in construction. Her husband dropped dead of a heart attack. Left her with a mountain of debt. She knows nothing about the finances, nothing about the business. And she said, can you sell the business? He has no employees, just subcontractors. All the data's in his head. When he died, the business died.
Yeah, people don't understand that nobody's going to come with a check and buy their hard, long-houred, crummy job.
They're not. They're
No.
not. Buyers want to buy a business. They want to buy business for people. They want to buy business that operates on all 6 cylinders. And that's the problem. Business owners got to stop working in their business and start working on it.
Yep. We agree 100%.
Yeah.
Our coach, Howard Partridge, always said, build the team or give up the dream.
Build a team or give up the dream. I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Well, do you want to go?
Teamwork makes the dream work.
That's right. So could you walk us through then the 6 Ps? We talked about that. You want to
You want me to
kind
do
of,
the GPS exit?
oh yeah,
mode
yeah.
and
Go
the
ahead, do that
6 Ps?
first. And then we'll go to, yeah,
Okay,
whatever's, however the book
so-
goes. It's fine.
So Larry's right. It's hard to think about exit. It's hard to think about, you're selling your business when you're in the middle doing everything. But you got to get out of the position where you're working in your business. So what we do is we walk our clients through the GPS exit model. Number 1 is destination. Business owners, that's why 80% of businesses don't sell, is because business owners are not building a business that someone wants to buy. They're not. So number 1 is your destination. I tell all my business owners, let's figure a price. Come up with a number that you want to sell your business for one day. And this is where everybody gets stuck, Larry. Everybody gets stuck on a number. Don't get stuck on a number. Just pick a number. You can always change it along the way. So let's say you want to sell your business for, pick a number. You want to pick a low number, high number, 5 million, 10 million? Let's say 10 million. You want to sell your business for 10 million. There's your destination. Now, what does a GPS exit model need to know? Where you're starting from. What is your current location? In other words, what is your current evaluation? Now, here's another biggest mistake that business owners make. Eric, most business owners have never had their business evaluated. I just met with an owner the other day, been in business 40 years, never had a business evaluation. That is financial suicide. Your business is your most valuable asset. We go to the doctor once a year and get a physical checkup to make sure our heart's still ticking and we're still kicking. We take our car to the mechanic to get an annual tune-up. But we take our business, the most valuable possession that we have, our most valuable asset, and we don't get an annual valuation checkup. Most business owners don't get evaluation until they want to sell their business. And that's when reality sets in that they think their business is going to be worth $20 million and it's worth $1 million.
So do they not get the evaluation because they're afraid it will be too low?
No, it's because what Larry said. They're not thinking about it.
They're just in it.
They're in it. They're in it. They're not thinking about it. They're in it. So you got to get an annual valuation checkup because there are events to increase valuation. There are events to decrease valuation. This pandemic is a perfect example of that. Some industries are having their best year ever, and some industries are dying. So you have to have an annual valuation checkup. Now, where do you get that done? You don't get that done at your local CPA because CPAs don't know how to evaluate synergies. You're not just going to evaluate the numbers. We evaluate synergies, and valuation is more of an art rather than a science. And we use 6 different methods, and one of them is the 6 Ps, and we evaluate synergies. So you need to know what your business is worth every year. So let's say you want to sell for 10 million. Today it's worth 2 million. The next thing you need to know in a GPS exit model is your time frame. What is your time frame? Let's say you want to sell it in 10 years. Again, this is a plan. It can be adjusted along the way. The next thing you need to know is who are my buyers going to be? Notice I say buyers, not buyer. We have sellers that come to us all the time and say, oh, Michelle already have the buyer. Just represent me with this one buyer. And I always say, no, I'm not going to. Because there's so much work. I have to evaluate your whole business on a 6 Ps. I have to get all your financials together, and it's probably a mess. And then I got to get everything, and I have to do the valuation, and I have to get it in the data room and do the due diligence. And your buyer, in all likelihood, is never going to buy your business. The deal will fall apart, and you have no backup buyers. Yeah. So you never want to put all your eggs in one buyer's basket. You always have to have backup buyers. When I bring offers to my clients and they sign a letter of intent, guess what I have waiting in the wings? Backup buyers.
Right.
Plus, how can you maximize value if you can't create a competition with a party of one?
Yeah, exactly.
So there's 5 types of buyers. Did y'all know that?
I did after reading your book.
So 90% of buyers are first-time buyers. So first-time buyers typically buy small businesses, coffee shops, ice cream stores, things of that nature. Now you will have first-time buyers that will buy service businesses Like they'll buy a plumbing company, they'll buy an AC company, but they're typically are going to buy a company that's under $1 million because they can't afford anything else.
Right.
Maybe 2 million. They're not going to buy a $10 million company. Then the second type of buyer is turnaround specialists. They buy distressed assets. You don't want to sell to them because that means you're not getting any money.
Right.
So the third type of buyer is PEGs, private equity groups. Private equity groups buy two ways, but based on platforms and add-ons. So service industry, let's say that they want to get into the service industry. The trend these days are electrical companies that are buying up plumbing companies, AC and heating companies. It's like a one-stop shop, right?
Yep.
So there's pegs in those spaces. So if a private equity group wants to get into the service space, they won't even consider a company for less than $3 million in EBITDA. Now,
Right.
EBITDA is just, let me slow that down. EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. All that really means is that it is the cash flow, including the personal expenses, non-recurring, before the CPA does your tax returns and includes depreciation, amortization, interest, and taxes. Does that make sense?
Yep. It does.
Okay, good. So it's the cash flow of your business, basically. So let's say they're already in a service business and they already have a platform. Then they'll start buying up smaller AC companies, plumbing companies, electrical companies, and they'll buy those for under $1 million in EBITDA because they're building up this big old conglomerate, either to roll up and go public or to sell for a higher multiple.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, we're
Third-
seeing that already in our industry's water damage, and what a lot of private equities coming in and buying plumbing companies and then buying restoration companies and putting them together because it's a natural fit, and they're just creating these behemoth companies that nobody can compete with.
So anybody that has restoration companies, come see me.
Yeah.
Because I have so
Yes.
many buyers, I can create a bidding war on your company and I can get you maximum value. Restoration companies they were selling before the pandemic,
Right.
but then they just blew up after the pandemic.
Yep.
So the fourth type of buyers, strategics and competitors, and they pay the highest multiple because they're buying synergies that will catapult their current business to the next level. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And they're taking advantage of economies of scale, which means they can decrease overhead. And they're looking at the infrastructure of the company that they're buying to see what overhead they can decrease to increase EBITDA from day one.
Right.
So they usually pay the highest multiple. The last type of buyer are your sophisticated entrepreneurs. They're industry agnostic. All they do is chase EBITDA. They chase cash flow. So those are 5 types of buyers. So then you have to revert. Now that you have your plan, you have to reverse engineer it and say, okay, well, if I want to sell for $10 million, where do my numbers need to be? Where's my gross revenues, my cost of goods, my operating expenses, most importantly, the bottom line, the EBITDA, the cash flow, where does that need to be? To sell for $10 million, it depends on your synergies and depends upon us creating a bidding war on your business, but your EBITDA needs to be around 1 million to 2 million, 1.5 to 2 million, somewhere around there. Make sense?
Mhm.
And so then you have to ask yourself, well, what synergies are these buyers looking for? What characteristics and how do I build to suit? It's kind of like, you start a company and this is your widget and this is your ideal market company, or, you're a plumber and this is your product. This is your target market. Same thing with your business. Your business is your product. Your business is your product. You're building it to meet the buyer specific criteria to get top dollar when you're ready. And then the last step is, what is your why? If it was easy to sell business for $10 million, everybody would be doing it.
Yeah.
You have to have a powerful why. You have to have a why that's going to keep you motivated, to keep you hungry, to keep you weathering all the financial storms and the pandemics that come our way.
So Michelle, when you are sitting down with somebody who is trying to be proactive about this, how long does it usually take them to get to where they really need to be to make a sale like that?
Well,
Generally.
that's a tough question because there's so many variables that come in place. Like, where are they starting from?
Right.
How close are they? Are there 6 cylinders? Are they operating off 4 out of the 6? And I just got to get them operating on 2. Are they operating on 0?
Right.
Are they just starting? There's so many different variables. But typically when a business owner wants to sell their business, I usually put them through, it depends. Like if their business is somewhat sellable for the price they want, then we'll go ahead and go to market. We'll tweak what we need to tweak we'll get them, trying to get them operating on all 6 cylinders, and we'll go to market. If they're off as far as what we can get them, because the valuation, that there's not enough value in their company, then it might take us a couple of years to get them there.
Right.
It just really depends.
Okay.
And it depends if they're going to listen.
All right. Let me ask another question. What percentage of the people actually listen?
You know,
it can't be that high. It can't be that high
it
because
depends on the stage. So when they want to sell, then they typically listen because they want to sell and they're motivated to sell. And I help them identify their beginning strategy before we finish their exit strategy. Because if I don't get business owners clear on what they're going to do next, they will sabotage the deal and we'll never close. So I got to help them plan a beginning strategy before. Look, I had a manufacturing company who were selling husband and wife. I bought them 3 offers, all on the price and terms that they wanted. And they nitpicked and found reasons to turn down all 3. And I said, whoa, time out. We're taking the business off the market. I'm not going to work for free here. You guys got to figure this out. You guys got to go figure what you want to do next and then come back to me. They came back to me about a month later and they're like, okay, we got it. They said, we've always been, they were high school sweethearts and they started this manufacturing company together. And they said, we always wanted to own a bed and breakfast. They said, so we're going to take the proceeds and either start one or buy one. And I said, okay, back on the market we go, bought them an offer and they closed. So there's a psychology to this too. There's a chapter in my book that really takes business owners through different exercises and mindset, to get them to figure out what it is they're really trying to accomplish. Because I can bring you the best offer in the world and you might not accept it because you haven't figured out what you're going to do next. It's kind of like the empty nesters syndrome when kids go to college and the husband and wife look at each other and go, now what?
Yeah, there has to be a lot of thought involved in the why. What you were saying is what they want to do with their life and why they're selling. And, there's a lot of thought that goes into it. It's not usually a knee-jerk thing. Right. Obviously, they're contacting you and there's a lot of money involved generally. But the why is a big deal. A lot
of them do listen, especially when, like we have companies right now we're working with to sell and they're in that stage and they listen. They won't even do things without calling me. I got one company we're selling for $70 million and oh my God, they call me for everything. Michelle, should we buy this piece of equipment? Is this going to hurt our EBITDA? What should we do? Is this going to help us? And they'll call me for every decision. So when they're
specialized in their own field, they're not specialized in the field that you're helping them. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when they have finally reached the decision that they want to sell, then they typically listen. It's in the growing phase. And you know this, y'all are consultants, y'all help business owners. It's in the fixing and growing phase that they don't always listen.
Yeah. They're still in that mode of everything has to come through me.
And that's the problem. You will never grow unless you let go of the control.
Yeah.
And that's why business owners are stuck. Business owners, typically the business owner is the bottleneck. I always say fish stinks from the head. Yep. And they are the bottleneck. So you will never grow unless you let go of the control. You got to stop controlling everything. You got to figure out what am I best at. It's like me and my company. Look, I'm not telling you to train people and let them run wild and do whatever they want to do, because you should never do that. I'm telling you, in the people, now let's get into the infrastructure. The first P is people. In the people phase, you need to focus on your strengths, hire your weaknesses, but you really got to figure out who is the best people and put them in the right seats and then empower them to do their jobs. But don't just let them run wild. Inspect what you expect.
Yep.
Trust but verify. A lot of times owners will call me and say, well, Michelle, I hired this CFO and and they embezzle money from me. I'm like, oh, okay, well, did you have checks and balances? Did you look at it? Did you trust but verify? Did you inspect stuff? Or did you just let them run wild? So people is the first thing. You got to put the right people in the right seats. And you got to ask the who question. Who opens the doors? Who handles customer service, marketing, legal, accounting, quality control. The answer who, Larry and Eric, is you should never be next to the who, because we're trying to build a business to run without you. So business owners, so in my business, I'll give you a perfect example. What do I do? And this is what I encourage business owners to do too. Figure out what you do. What is the best thing that you do that really you can't delegate, that nobody else can do? What are you the best at? And for me, I write books. I tried the ghostwriter thing. It was god awful. Wasted a lot of time, wasted a lot of money. So I know only I can write my books. Only I can do my podcast. Only I can really negotiate those, companies are at 50, 70, $100 million, because that's my core competency. I can't really delegate that. Yes, I can train people, but nobody's as good as me. So what am I good at that I can delegate? I'm good at evaluations, but I have a team of analysts. They can do that. I'm good, but guess what? I still inspect what I expect. Every evaluation still passes in front of me, and I still look at it to make sure it's done correctly. So that's what business owners have to do. You will never grow unless you let go of the control. That doesn't mean you're not ever overseeing your business, because you are overseeing your business. At some point, you need a layer of management that's in between the employees and yourself.
Yeah.
A liaison.
That's true.
So that's the people. The second P, do y'all want to go through the P's?
Yep.
The second P is product. So let me give y'all a little bit of history. When I wrote my very first book called Sell Your Business for More Than It's Worth in 2013, I did the research and learned that 95% of all startups would fail, even in the service industry. 95% of all startups will fail between 1 to 5 years. When I wrote Exit Rich and did the same research, I was flabbergasted to learn that the business landscape is actually flip-flopped. Now only 30% of startups will fail in the first 1 to 5 years. Out of 27.6 million companies, those businesses that have been in business over 10 years, 70% of them are at risk of going out of business. 70% of them will go out of business. Do you see how that's flip-flopped?
Yeah.
Like, you hear about all the big public companies in the media because the media talks about the big public companies. Do you ever hear the media talking about private companies? No. Toys R Us in business 75 years goes out of business. Kmart, Steinmart, Pier 1, Godiva Chocolate's going out. Starbucks is having trouble, but they're not talking to you about the private businesses on every street corner in every town in every state across our great nation. These business owners are exiting poor, selling for pennies on the dollar, closing their business, or even worse, filing bankruptcy. And let me get this point across, because your owners need to know this. When you file bankruptcy, do you just lose your business assets? No. In many cases, you're going to lose your personal assets too, because most business owners continue to pierce the corporate veil by commingling assets, by taking out a mortgage of their house to support their business, by signing personal guarantees, by commingling, all the add-backs that they're doing, running things through their business. So the number one reason for that is because of lack of aim. AIM, AIM. Business owners stop innovating and marketing. Even in the service business, even in restoration, you still have to innovate.
Oh,
right?
It's super competitive. You have to be on it. There's a new plumbing company, restoration company every week in every market in the country.
Yep. And they're pretty, and a lot of them are pretty good at marketing.
No, they are.
You have to be super freaking innovative.
Yeah. Why do you think Larry has that hat on?
Right. And you got to market. And so the number one reason businesses are going out of business is because lack of innovation, lack of marketing. Business owners are married to the original concept and they stop innovating. And the reason they stop innovating, Larry, is because they're working in their business, not on their business.
Yeah. No,
hard to innovate. Most entrepreneurs are visionaries, but it's hard to have a vision when you're in the toilet.
Yeah.
So to speak.
No, it's true. Yeah. A lot. I mean, we see this with a lot of our friends, and we were kind of this way too. Like a lot of the best work is done in the first couple of years during that startup phase.
Yeah.
And then you're just so overwhelmed. Nothing really cool or new happens after that. You're just doing it.
And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you realize that you lost market share.
Yeah, no,
Your business is not what it was.
totally.
You know, so product is the second P. So you always got to look at your product or service, your industry, and ask, do I service my product on the way up or on the way out? Is it thriving or dying? Do I have an Amazon? If you have an Amazon, this is when you sell. You sell when you're prime. Business have life cycles just like humans do. You sell when you're in your prime. You don't sell when you're down.
Right.
And if you have a blockbuster, I always tell my clients, ask 3 transformational questions. Amazon did this back in the 90s. And service businesses should ask themselves this. Amazon asked themselves, what business are we in? And Amazon said, we're in a book fulfillment business. We fulfill book orders. Second question is, what do we do better than everybody else? Like we were just talking about. Eric, what do we do better? What do y'all do better than everybody else? You need to identify your USP, your unique selling proposition. Amazon said we do fulfillment better than everybody else. The next obvious question is, what business should we be in?
Right. Yeah.
And you have to do that in the service business. And Amazon said, we should be in a fulfillment business, fulfilling
Everything.
products for everything and everybody, not just books.
Right.
Those 3 transformational questions transform Amazon from a small book fulfillment center to a multi-billion-dollar worldwide conglomerate that they are today.
Yeah.
So that's product. Innovation is key. Here's another place that people get stuck, Eric, is they have one profit center.
Yeah.
You can't
And
have one profit center. Restaurants took a huge beating during this pandemic because they get paid one way. Customers come in and eat, or they take out. They take food out. Do they have an e-commerce business? Are they selling any products? Are they selling any recipes? Are they selling any sauces, seasoning, cookbooks? No. You have to have congruent revenue streams. I say congruent. Right? And that's why do you think that these companies are buying up electrical, plumbing? Because they're having congruent revenue streams under one roof.
yeah, no, it's huge. What about process? That's my favorite, by the way.
That's number 3.
I know.
Tell me about, you want to talk about processes?
I do. I'm a
You want me
systems.
to?
I'm a systems guy.
Yeah.
Use systems all the
That's-
time.
That's my
Yep.
thing.
So processes are kind of like exit strategies, Larry. People don't think about them until something bad happens and they're like, oh, we need a process for that. Am I right?
Totally. Yeah.
People don't think of processes. I mean, we're selling a manufacturing plant and a employee got hurt on the floor, lost a limb. So the owner is getting lawsuits like crazy, having to go to bankruptcy court. And he was, I'm going to sell his business in bankruptcy. I got to put this as a stalking horse. That's what they call it. And he said, Michelle, we need a policy for health and safety on the manufacturing floor. And I'm like, you're a little late for that. Like you needed that beforehand. So Larry, processes, in my opinion, is where most business owners go wrong. Because most business owners design processes around their own agenda or their own lifestyle. Doctors, what are their hours? Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 when we're all working?
Yeah, it's insane.
Chiropractors are even worse. They're like Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to 1, close for 3 hours. Then we come back from 3 to 5 and we're open Tuesday morning, Thursday afternoon. You have to design the processes around the customer experience.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, then you're going to lose market share because you're going to have unhappy customers. And the best example I can give to illustrate this is the movie The Founder. Did you ever watch the movie The Founder based on the McDonald brothers?
Yes.
So
Great movie.
great movie, right?
Yep.
And
the
just
book.
to go back to that transformational question on product, do you remember when Ray Kroc, played by Michael Keaton, was in the bank because he was over leveraged, took a loan out against his house? The bank says he commingled assets, right? The bank said, you over leveraged, I can't lend you any money. Do you remember when Michael Keaton walked out, Ray Kroc walked out of the bank, a gentleman followed him out and said, I'm so sorry. I overheard your conversation. I want to ask you what business you're in. And Ray Kroc said, I'm in the restaurant business. And he said, no, what business are you in? And Ray Kroc is like, I'm in the restaurant business. He said, what business are you really in? And Ray Kroc goes, I have no idea what you're talking about. He said, you are in the real estate business.
Yep.
You need to buy the land, build the buildings, lease them to the franchisees. When the franchisees are not compliant, you void the contract and get another franchisee in there. That gave him control over the franchisees which allowed him, he started McDonald's Corporate Realty, which is what allowed him to steal McDonald's away from the McDonald brothers for like, what was it, $2 million, I think he paid. And he
Yeah.
never paid the royalties because of those, that, that gentleman and his perspective and that question. Ray Kroc was able, if that never happened, there would not be a McDonald's everywhere, right? If that didn't happen, McDonald's wouldn't be the largest, still to this day, they're the largest real estate holding company in the world because of that question.
Yeah, that's
So
crazy.
back to processes. Back in the 50s, McDonald's said, we want to start a fast food restaurant and we want a fast food system and we want to build our processes around the customer experience. What do we want the customers to experience? They said, we want them to experience great tasting food that's hot and fast, 30 seconds or less. Do you remember when they went to the empty tennis courts and took chalk and drew out the processes and they all bumped into each other, stepped on each other's toes? They were there for 9 hours. And even though the processes have been tweaked since 1950, it's why you can eat at McDonald's anywhere in the world and get the same experience.
Well, it's also what frees the owner because, like anybody that's read Michael Gerber's E-Myth, you're going to be in that business if you don't have systems for your people to be able to come in, know what they're supposed to do, execute, and then be accountable to that system.
Exactly. So processes go along with people. And, it's why McDonald's can fire someone and have somebody up and running the drive-through within 15 to 30 minutes because of their SOP checklist. Have you ever dealt with a company that's the opposite and doesn't have the processes designed around the customer experience? Like, have you ever dealt with a bank, social media company, retail, and you're trying to get somebody on the phone, you got to push this number and this number and this number, you finally get
We
some
see
money.
it often. Yeah, it's a hassle.
And you got to you tell your story and like, after they listen to your whole story, oh, let me transfer you.
Yeah.
And then you get disconnected or you get transferred again and again and again. So processes, we have to go back to asking customers, what do you need? What do you want? How can I make it easier for you to do business with us and design your processes around the customer's experience, especially in the service industry, especially. Because if you don't create wow experiences for your clients, then somebody else will. So they have to be productive, efficient, well documented. You have to have those policy and procedure manuals and keep it open because something will happen. You're like, oh, we need a policy for that. And it needs to go in the manual. You need those SOP checklists.
Yep. Agreed.
And you need somebody to train those policies and procedures to everybody as well.
Absolutely.
That's a big step as well that we've seen as a challenge in the service industry because you have to go
And it
with guys in
shouldn't
the field.
necessarily be the owner training.
No, it shouldn't necessarily be the owner at all.
Correct.
It should be somebody out training these guys how to do it. And
Absolutely.
somebody that's done it before is always more helpful as well.
So the next P, if you're done with processes, is proprietary. Proprietary is the number one value driver. So I'll give you a crash course real quick in valuations. I haven't done this yet, right?
Nope.
Businesses under $1 million in EBITDA, which is under $1 million in cash flow, will typically trade for multiple, depending upon the industry, from 1 to 3, maybe 3.5 times, depending upon the synergies. Unless you're a SaaS company, everybody thinks that they can get a multiple of revenues because that's what their CPA told them. That is not true.
Right.
It's a multiple of EBITDA unless you're SaaS, which is software.
Yep.
So businesses over $1 million in EBITDA will start typically at 5, end up, depending upon the synergy. So we want to get that EBITDA to over $1 million because $1 million is where you have more buyers for businesses over $1 million than you have buyers for EBITDA under $1 million. There are more buyers for good businesses than there are good businesses to buy. So what drives the multiple? The synergies do, the proprietary assets do. There's 6 pillars to proprietary. I'll try to move through them really quickly, and the last 2 P's are quick. First and foremost is branding. The more well-branded you are, why do you think these private equity groups are buying up electrical, plumbing, all of that and rolling it up under one brand? Because the more well-branded you are, the more we can sell your company for as long as your brand is relevant in the mind of the consumer. Right. Is anybody paying any money for Blockbuster?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. The most valuable brand in the world is, do you know?
Apple.
Apple. Yay, winner, winner, chicken dinner. Apple is worth $359 billion.
That's crazy.
That's not assets, inventory, real estate, cash flow, AR. That's just the brand. So build your brand. Trademarks are huge. So a lot of times when people buy businesses, Owners will ask me, well, Michelle, should I change your name? Yes, if that brand is not that big that you're buying, you need to roll it all up under one big name. Trademarks are huge. Trademark your company name, your slogan, your logo, your podcast. But here's a mistake that business owners make. Business owners go out there and they think of a name and they go to GoDaddy and they're like, yes, we got the .com. Let's go to California and get a state license. But they never check the federal database. So I've seen business owners be in business 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and all of a sudden receive a cease and desist letter and have to stop using that company name. And yes, they hire an attorney. Yes, they throw a lot of money at it, but they're going to lose. In all likelihood, they will probably lose. And then you have to start the rebranding all over again.
Right.
You don't want to do that. So make sure you protect. If you have any products that you invented, because we have one company that's got 12 different exclusive products. One's in Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, Target. They have a federal trademark for each product. Strategics will pay a lot of money for that. Also patents. If you have anything that, because service businesses create things, right? Sometimes they create things.
Sure, yeah.
So what does Shark Tank always ask every single inventor? Do you have a patent on that? Do you have a patent pending? Their offer is always contingent upon the patent.
Yeah.
So patents are huge. We sold a company for $18 million. It wasn't making any money, but they had 18 patents. Contracts are really big. Manufacturing contracts, vending contracts, distributor contracts, exclusivity contracts, franchisors. They have franchisees like a Service Pro. Is it Service Pro, I think, in restoration?
Serve Pro.
So contracts are big. Client contracts are the most valuable. But here's a mistake that all business owners make. I've never seen a business owner do this in over 20 years. You need the transferability clause, the 2-sentence transferability clause that says this contract is transferable upon a new entity. Because 98% of sales are asset sales, not stock sales. If the buyer doesn't agree to a stock sale, or if your clients don't agree to sign a consent to transfer, your deal could fall apart.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you have that transferability clause. And then databases are really big because buyers will pay more money for databases. Facebook paid $19 billion for WhatsApp. And WhatsApp was hemorrhaging money, especially if your clients are being nurtured and they can be retargeted and repurposed. Celebrity endorsements are big. We have a client that's on Oprah's favorite things, celebrity endorsements are huge. So that's proprietary assets. The next P, any questions there, guys? Also content. Like let's say a service company has a tremendous amount of content, and great advertising that they do, and they're ranked very high on the internet. People will pay more money for things like that. Like my e-commerce businesses that have top positions on Amazon, Etsy, Wayfair, they get a higher multiple.
Yeah.
So the last P is patrons, and service businesses are typically pretty diversified. We've sold restoration businesses before where most of their business was coming from insurance companies, and they 80-90% of the revenue would come from 2 or 3 insurance companies. That's not good because if you lose one of those insurance companies, you're in big trouble. So most businesses follow the 80-20 rule where 80% of the revenue comes from 20% of their clients. You don't want customer concentration, you need customer diversification.
Right.
And if you've been in business for 20, 30, 40 years, your clients are probably aging out. So you got to pivot and change. You got to innovate and market to get those newer clients.
Yeah. Larry and I lived through that a little bit.
Yeah.
How long were aging out. We had to change our marketing to get a younger demographic.
Yeah, you really have to change it because millennials and Gen X don't buy the same way baby boomers buy.
Exactly.
So you got to completely change it. And business owners don't think about things like this. The last P, the most important P to all entrepreneurs is profit. The reason I put profit last is because profit is never the problem. Lack of profit is never the problem. It's a symptom of.
Right.
And clients come to me all the time and say, Michelle, I have a profit problem. I'm like, no, you have a people problem. No, you have a process problem.
Right.
You didn't protect your IP. Now you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to fight it. If you're operating on all 5 Ps, you're going to be extremely profitable. If you're not, you won't. It's pretty much that simple.
Well, that's awesome. No, that's good. So what do you know, let's talk to, specifically our listeners who are basically home service business owners. What would you say, like, for a starting point? Because a lot of guys, and look, Larry and I in the early days were guilty of this too. We didn't know any of this stuff. We were technicians at heart. We knew how to do our trade. And then next thing you know, you have a business with a bunch of people and you're like, holy crap, I don't know what I'm doing. And, for Larry and I, we went and got coaching. We immediately were like you said, we had to fix us before we could fix the business.
See, y'all were smart. A lot of business owners don't do that. That was very smart.
I think too, I mean, this is what we see in our coaching. A lot of it is ego. They don't want to admit that they need to go get some outside help. And like, I'm always imploring people, go get outside help. It's not, Tiger Woods needed a swing coach and Michael Jordan needed Phil Jackson. Like, it's okay to have a coach. It's a good thing.
Everybody needs a coach. And you know what? The smartest people in the world surround themselves with people smarter than them.
Yeah, exactly.
Donald Trump did it. He had George Ross, who everybody thinks Donald Trump was a big negotiator. Who do you actually think papered the deal and made sure it happened? George Ross, his attorney.
Right.
So I always say check your ego at the door. Check your ego at the door, because would you rather keep your ego or keep profits?
Yeah, exactly.
Keep your
You
business going.
really got to hire an expert. You really got to hire a mentor, because it's not what you know that gets you in trouble. It's what you don't know.
Right. So what do you think guys should do to start the process? And even if they're only 4 or 5 years in, like, now's the time, right? Now's the time
Because it's so much easier, Eric, I think, to start when you're newer in business, because you don't have so many things to fix.
Right.
And you can kind of start with a clean slate, and now's the time to say, hey, I need to build this infrastructure. I really got to get people. I got to focus on my strengths. I got to get the right people in the right seats. What are my who's? Everybody should pause this and write down all the who's in their business. Yeah. And figure out what you're going to stop doing. Everybody has a to-do list. You need a stop list. What you're going to stop doing.
And
but
everybody, it's easier to do it when you have fewer people, because Larry and I did that. I started building systems and making, management assignments, and, the people that were there when you were winging it, they don't want the change. So they leave. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times they're just like, oh, there's all these rules now.
Doing things
rules. We need rules, guys. Yeah. And, certain people will just go. So build when you're small, build it out when you're smaller.
I think it's so much easier to start when you're smaller, because it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. And if a guy's been with you for, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, you're right. They don't want to do things differently. Why do you think that so many business owners are going out of business after being in business for 10 years? Because they don't want to do things differently. They don't want to adapt. They don't want to innovate. Same thing with employees. So it's always better to start fresh when you're new. But you got to start somewhere. Look at this graphics company. I mean, they were in business for probably 10 to 12 years before they came to me.
Right.
You got to start somewhere.
So I know you have a book coming out, and I know you have some offers for our listeners. So why don't you go ahead and let everybody know how they can get the book and all of the other cool stuff that you're bringing to the table today.
Yeah. So Exit Rich, it was endorsed by Steve Forbes, saying it's a gold mine for entrepreneurs, as entrepreneurs leave way too much money on the table. And Sharon Lecter's my co-author. Did you ever read Rich Dad Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
She wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki. She's a 5-time New York Times bestselling author,
That's
a
cool.
CPA and a financial literacy expert, and the advisor to many different presidents. So she writes a mentor's corner after each one of my chapters. And Kevin Harrington, the original Shark on Shark Tank, writes the foreword. So Exit Rich is not just about selling your business. I want all of your listeners to really understand that, because most businesses are not going to sell. Exit Rich is all about building a sellable asset.
Right.
So when you are ready, you won't become a statistic.
Yeah. No.
And so Exit Rich, like I said, comes out June 22nd. You can go to exitrichbook.com exitrichbook.com for $24.79, which is less than Amazon. We will email you the digital download immediately, so you don't have to wait for the launch date.
Cool.
And we will ship the hardcover to your doorstep upon launch date to anyone who lives inside the United States. Plus, we will give you a lifetime membership into the Exit Rich Book Club. Exit Rich Book Club has video content of me doing deep dives and different strategies and techniques that we've been talking about right here on this show. And we have documents to operate your business, documents to sell your business, sample employee handbooks, org charts, policy and procedure manuals.
Wow.
To sell your business, sample letter of intent. So you know how many business owners never saw a letter of intent? Sample purchase agreements, due diligence checklist, closing docs. All these documents to own and operate your business are there for your review and download. They will cost you probably over $40,000 if you went to an attorney to recreate. You can use them. Just remove the name Seiler Tucker.
Right. No, that's
I had
awesome.
I had a lady email me yesterday. She goes, "Can I use these?" I go, "Yes, but you have to remove my company name." She goes, "Oh, okay."
Wow.
And then we're giving you a 30-day free membership into Club CEOs, which is an entrepreneur mastermind where we do Q&As, hot seats, really ask those transformational questions to help business owners pivot so they can build that sustainable, scalable, and sellable business, all for $24.79 at exitrichbook.com. That's less than lunch.
That's an amazing amount of stuff for $25.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
Less than
A lot of
25.
opportunity to implement a lot of things, which is wonderful.
Awesome.
And that all goes away after June 22nd. So get your copy before June 22nd. And my main website is seilertucker.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you, Michelle. That was awesome today. That was a lot of information. I know a lot of guys are going to be like going and looking in the mirror tonight going, I think that's me. And I think I need to start working on this,
Well,
Yeah.
just from our experience, all these things are really important because we ran into situations where we had things lined up and there were many things that we didn't. And if we had them lined up previous, it would have been a lot easier for us.
Absolutely.
You guys have been it. You guys have lived it, and me too. I mean, I got a mentor, and it is tough in the beginning for somebody to tell you things about your business and what you're doing wrong.
But once you let go and start just owning it all, like that, when Larry and I, everything got better for us when we just owned that every single thing that's wrong was our problem. It's our fault. And then it's up to us to fix it. And as soon as we got there, everything got better.
Yeah,
because you become
it is
coachable.
your fault. It is your fault. You can't blame it on anybody else. The buck stops with the owner.
Exactly.
But owners want to blame on employees and want to blame them on the taxes and want to blame on the president and want to blame on the government. So many different things. At the end of the day, it is our fault.
Yeah.
The buck stops with us.
Perfect.
And you're right. Things get better when you can finally accept that.
They do. Larry, you want to take us out as usual?
Well, thank you very much, Michelle, joining us. We appreciate your insight, and I'm sure our guests as well do wonderfully. And we'll definitely look forward to the feedback from this podcast. And we are out.